when I was young.
Hello, this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about the DOJ searching Biden's Delaware home. Actually, my sister just asked about it not too long ago and asked, was I going to talk about it? And I wasn't planning to, but it's, I guess, worth talking about it to talk about how different it is from what they did with Trump. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. Also going to be talking about the media, how they are continuing to come after Ron DeSantis and the AP African American Studies course that had queer theory and a bunch of other stuff in it. Joy Reid's talking about it and said some dumb stuff, of course. So I'm going to call her out because she's the worst. And Whoopi Goldberg, the hens over at the View cackling. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. Also, James Gunn, who's received a lot of pushback and anger from the fans over getting rid of Henry Cavill after people expected him to come back as Superman, and by the way, they made an announcement and everything, and so they're taking the DC universe in a different direction, and so he began to announce some stuff, and I found it underwhelming, and I'm seeing other folks who are finding it overwhelming. So I want to talk about that. I will hold that off to the end. So, but before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website. I did drop an article today regarding quite a few things that we've been discussing lately about how, well, particularly the story I mentioned about the young man on Twitter who was grieving the loss of his child, and he got so much backlash from people because they didn't feel that he was entitled to grieve his child because it was killed by abortion, and he should just support the woman and be silent, etc. So I just think that we as a society are unnecessarily cruel to men. I mean, for the purposes of their agenda, I understand why they need to push that particular cruelty toward men. But abortion doesn't undo a person, and he doesn't even, he'll never know what it's like to smell the scent of his baby's skin, to see the smile, and all sorts of other things. No memories to hold on to, just a bunch of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And men are entitled to feel feelings regarding that. So I think what we're doing to men and women is incredibly insidious. People always talk about abortion between a woman and her doctor. No, there's deep societal issues regarding that. So I did pin that down. So it's available at blacktnews.com. I just dropped the article today. So if you haven't read it, please go ahead and read it. I think it's an important read, and I hope it's something that people reflect about. So that's available on the website. You can find all kinds of other things, including different videos. I'm still building the March for Life page, but I have been posting some of the interviews and videos. I do want to give a special shout out to particularly my silver and gold sponsors, but my gold sponsors are Brighter Michigan PAC, Michigan Conservative Coalition, and Plymouth Right to Life. So, and I'm very thankful my silver sponsors are down at the bottom. All particularly, the bottom, those people are friends of mine. Brighter Michigan PAC has done incredible work. Michigan Conservative Coalition, I just got introduced pretty much to the people over the Plymouth Right to Life, and actually they reached out to me during the election season because of my Prop 3 video, and they really liked it. So they wanted to send it, not the main one I still have pinned on my Facebook page, but a commercial that I did. So they wanted to send it around. They really liked my content. So that's one of the reasons why I guess they were willing to, help me go out to March for Life. So I have posted several videos. I don't know if I'm going to play one today so much, but there's one I posted today, and it's on YouTube, of Tony McFadden, and I saw her speak at the March for Life in 2022. Yeah, in 2022, and she took the abortion pills, which people are like, oh, it's like having a heavy period. It's not a big deal. Like, people will really really downplay it. So she took it at the clinic, and she's supposed to take the other ones like later, and it didn't work, and it ended up causing her to hemorrhage like 2 months later. And so she had a very terrible experience. But I asked her, like, why did you feel that you need to have an abortion? And so she, her friends were like, you about to graduate, you can't be having a baby, you got to go to college or whatever. And then she was afraid to tell her family, and her boyfriend pressured her to. And so she went ahead and had the abortion. The day after she had the abortion, he broke up with her. So there's a stat that I put in my article. It's like 56.3, or it's either 56 point, maybe it's 58.3. It's in the 50s. I'm sorry. 50, somewhere in the 50 percentile, as women who regret or have emotions about abortion, feel that they had an abortion to please someone else. And it was in the 70 percentile where women felt that they felt some kind of pressure. So when we talk about woman's choice, is it solely a woman's choice? Or are they doing it to people please? Or are they doing it because they're terrified? Or are they doing it because they feel alone, because they feel afraid? And you might do it to please somebody else, but her boyfriend ended up breaking up with her the day after. So she had a pretty incredible story. She ended up becoming a Christian, finding healing and for herself for what she had done. But her boyfriend, who broke up with her, she ended up reuniting with him sometime later, and he had become a Christian, and he apologized to her, and the two of them ended up reconciling and getting married. And so at their wedding day, they ended up honoring their child, who was killed in the abortion. But they're taking that story and their experience and trying to encourage other people to choose a better, different path. So I know I talk about this topic a lot, but it is very important to me that that is not something that we just slam men and women for. It is a terrible thing, and sometimes harsh language is appropriate, but I want people to understand that my goal is not to condemn women to death, to hell, for the rest of their lives. That's not what I want. And I want redemption over condemnation. So she has a story that speaks to that. So it is really well worth checking out. So I was very glad to be able to meet her. So she spoke last year at the March for Life. She might have spoke again this year. I'm not certain, because I got at the rally kind of late, but I saw her at the Students for Life Summit. So she spoke there. So that's where I interviewed her. So you can go check out that interview. It's a great story. She does also have a book. So go ahead and check that out as well. So if you like the sort of things that I do, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate and support Black Tea News, whether it's a gift of $20, $50, etc. It does cost to stream my website. I mean, stream, the software that I use when I make fancier videos, software for that, to run my website, all that different stuff. And so if you would like to help with that overhead, help to expand, God bless you. I very much appreciate it. So check out that stuff, and also check out different merch. It is Black History Month, so why not get the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt here with a list of his racist stuff on the back, as well as Be Better Not Better. And also I have my book, one of my books, or two of my books here. This is a historical fiction fantasy series. It takes place in the Civil War era. I will briefly explain it. So when Charlotte was a young girl, she was purchased by a woman named Lady Cohen. And so she believed she was supposed to take care, of the be a house slave, take care of the master's needs, and particularly the master's son. But when she gets older, she realizes that she was actually selected because they sensed that she had a power. So it's like X-Men meets Civil War. So she takes that power, and it's really about how a slave with she didn't know her own name and other stuff like that became to become basically a leader in a movement. So I love this story. It's usually the one that people ask for a recommendation. That's a recommendation. So this is one that is available for paperback. It's available on Kindle, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you want to go to my website, blacktnews.com, if you hit merchandise, there's a banner at the top. It'll take it over to my book website. Otherwise, you can just go to ninjadoespublishing.com. That's my book website, and check it out. Or just search my name on Amazon and you'll find it. One of my mini books, or two of my mini books. So go ahead and check that out. Actually, the first book I wrote it in February. Like Black History Month. I completed it like in a month, the first one. So it was really labor of love. I love all my books, but these are special to me. So it is that time of month, or that time of year. So I'm gonna be talking about it a lot. So go ahead and support. So let's get into the meat of the day. Some different stories. So the DOJ did decide to search Biden's home, but with Mar-a-Lago, they showed up. It was a big surprise. We called it a raid, and which that was, I guess, our term, media, and that folks didn't really want to use it like that. But yeah, that's what happened with Biden. He agreed to let them search. They didn't even have a warrant. So this story is from Fox. DOJ searches Biden, Delaware, beach home amid classified document investigation. On Wednesday for 3.5 hours, but did not find additional classified documents. The president's attorney, Bob Bauer, said today, with the president's full support and cooperation, the DOJ is conducting a planned search of his home in Delaware under the DOJ standard procedures and the interest of operational security and integrity. It sought to do this work without advance public notice, and we agreed to cooperate, Bauer said in a statement. The search today is a further step in a thorough and timely DOJ process. We will continue to fully support and facilitate. We will have further information at the conclusion of today's search, he said. He added, the search included around noon. Bauer said there was no warrants. So, yeah, he's cooperating. It is his DOJ. All this time that he's had all these, documents or whatever, I'm sure they've picked up a lot of what they had, and they've moved a lot of different things. If there was something that was going to be crazy, incriminating or something, I'm sure he wouldn't have agreed to just been searched by the FBI without a warrant. So if this is just to make it look like, he's so cooperative, I don't get that vibe. I mean, obviously he let them do it, but with good reason. So, I mean, he's already done things that he should not have done, having the classified documents as the vice president. But there's also classified documents back going from his time of being a senator. So he ought to be in trouble, but I don't know what everyone is waiting for. A lot of stuff I wouldn't hold my breath for. If you're waiting for somebody to be severely punished for doing these things, it's not like you're Joe Schmo and you're gonna get the book thrown at you, much like the DOJ. Biden's DOJ tried to throw the book at a pro-life sidewalk advocate the other day. They got the jury didn't convict him, but they'll go over the dumbest stuff. But folks like Biden, and he is the president, of course, aren't going to get really brought down for something like this. At the most, he's not going to run again. They're not going to impeach him and then arrest him over this stuff. If that's what you're hoping for and crossing your fingers for, your fingers are going to hurt. They're going to hurt. you're gonna be holding your breath a long time. You're not gonna make it. Like, just go ahead and be pleasantly surprised if something happens along those lines. But I do not foresee anything sort of happening with Biden. I think the best way with some of these politicians to defeat them is to defeat them at the polls. And unfortunately, like, but Biden didn't suffer in the midterms. Who knows if he is actually going to be able to complete his full, run to the presidency in 2024. There's always the theory that they're floating some of this classified stuff around, and maybe it was just a matter of time before it came out, since they went with Trump with the stuff and that it came out that he had it. But maybe there's a lot of conversations at least about it, and people will sit down and say, sir, you cannot run again. But I don't know about that, because they don't have a good bench. And if they have, like, maybe if it is Trump running again and he's the nominee, they'll feel like more confident about putting up more people against him. I feel pretty confident that if it's a Biden Trump rematch, that they think that Biden will win. You may like be offended by that, but I at least think they believe that Biden will win in a rematch. I think that now, if Ron DeSantis is like the person they put up, and it's like DeSantis, Republicans put up, and it's DeSantis versus Biden, they might want Biden just because, one, it's harder to beat an incumbent, and two, he's super old and it's worth it to sacrifice Joe against a really good opponent. So if they're gonna lose, if they feel like there'd be nothing to stop someone like a Ron DeSantis, then you might as well put up somebody like Biden and see and be happy if he wins and not sad if he loses. Because I mean, they'll be sad to lose the power, but it's not like they wasted the next Barack Obama or something like that, which I believe is part of the reason why Joe Biden was a nominee. I don't think he was the nominee because everybody thought he was so strong, the candidate, etc. I think a lot had to do with him and Kamala Harris being the nominees, is that they felt strongly that they were worth the sacrifice. Like, good if they win. Like, he was just in the White House with Obama. Like, maybe some of that will rub off. He's been in the game a long time. There's a lot of people who feel comfortable with Uncle Joe, even though he's creepy. So maybe those people will feel kind of safe and like go back to something stable, like the last thing you remember. Like, I'm not saying that strategy wasn't there and they didn't think that he was also like good in a sense, but I do largely believe that they didn't think that they were really risking much if Biden lost, because he's really, really old. Like, this was his shot. And he did not make it seem like he would run again, by the way. He said at one point during the campaign trail, or maybe I think it was during the campaign trail, that he was basically a placeholder if he would win. So like a placeholder until like someone better came along. But he apparently likes the power. He feels emboldened, especially after the midterm. I mean, even Democrats were just kind of like, I don't know about him running again. They tried to skate around it, but Biden ended up being the nominee. So I mean, not being the nominee, but it wasn't the shellacking that it ought to have been. So Biden feels empowered that even though these polls, say he's not very popular, that he can still proceed forward and win. And I think he personally is itching for a rematch with Trump. And I think Trump is probably, obviously is itching for that sort of rematch as well. So if Biden is going to be, I don't know if he's going to step aside. I think someone's going to have to make him step aside. So going all the way back around to this email situation, or not email, classified documents, maybe this could be the thing, depending on how much they want to blow it up, that pushes Joe Biden aside. Now, there are Democrats talking about, like, if they do any sort of investigation on this, it's just going to be a waste of time. And so they're not signaling an enthusiasm to put him in his place, to push him out. So there's a lot of time between now and the next election. I mean, 2 years goes by really fast in politics, but it is still kind of early. We'll see in the summer if other people kind of really start creeping in. But to right now, I'd assume that Joe Biden is the guy because I don't know who else they would get. I think other people are making other moves. I think people know collectively that Kamala Harris is absolutely awful and she has no real. I mean, these people fail up, so I guess she'll continue to have a career. But as far as her like reaching like presidential territory, no, that's not gonna work. And Mayor Pete, well, Secretary Pete, he's um he's moved to Michigan with his husband. So people assume that the reason for that is that he may run for Senate here. Blah. So which will be that's gonna be a crazy Senate race, absolutely bonkers. So that might be his next move. I don't know how quick he's gonna be for another presidential run. He's not even like too hot with the transportation secretary. So we shall see. We shall see. Okay, so let's move on. I want to talk about Joy Reid, who I very much dislike, but she's she's just the worst. So on her program, she was talking about Ron DeSantis, which a lot of people are, and a lot of people were talking about Florida when they had the "Don't Say Gay" bill, which she ends up bringing up, and there's just propaganda after propaganda after propaganda. So I want to go ahead and look through that. So we'll start with Joy.
Doing is intentional.
Hold on.
What DeSantis is doing is intentional. In order to peel off Trump's Republican voters and get them on his side ahead of his presidential bid in 2024, he's turning Florida into a right-wing paradise where the focus isn't on healthcare or jobs or taxes or infrastructure or, I don't know, hurricane or flood insurance in one of the most natural disaster-prone states in the country. You know, normal governor stuff.
Which DeSantis does pretty good with that stuff, you know. So I wouldn't sweat it, Joy. He can walk and talk, chew gum all at the same time.
But rather on the right-wing culture wars, and nothing but the right-wing culture wars. And he's ticking all the boxes. Not only is he banning books about history and any mention of the existence of gay people from Florida schools.
So this is such an egregious, stupid thing to say. So she's going off of like the "Don't Say Gay" bill as if we are unaware that even that phrase is not we know it's propaganda, and I'm sure she knows by now that it's propaganda. I know she's on MSNBC. I know she's like in a bubble. I know they're like in a collective information sort of cult, but there's had to be like conversations had somewhere. She's had to listen to a person or two tweet at her or some kind of video somewhere, or maybe like a researcher on her team, if not herself, has actually read it, and maybe someone has said, "Hey Joy, you know, there's like a couple of pages, like it's I think that it's like 7 pages, but some of it is like the beginning like summary, and then it goes into like the breakdown of it. So I think maybe like the relevant information is just like 4 pages. It's really short. It's not like an omnibus package where most people are never going to read it, including the people who vote for it to pass. The "Don't Say Gay" bill is something that everyone can just go look at and read through it very quickly, which we've done on the show before when it was like the height of conversation. Like we've gone through the whole thing and talked about it. So the purpose of the Parental Rights and Education bill, that's what it's called, not the "Don't Say Gay" bill, was that parents, well, teachers, administrators, whoever, cannot hide important information regarding their child's well-being from parents. You can't do that. And so reason being, there were stories, like real stories, not rumors, of families that had children in school and the teachers wanted to change their pronouns or change their gender or have these plan, like one child had the school had like a plan and was talking about where she would sleep in what cabin during overnight visits. And hearing stuff like that, take the gender confusion like out of it. The fact that you have these administrators who want to create some kind of wedge between the child and the parent, and want to encourage them to be rebellious and do things behind the parents' back, that is egregious and evil, and it's just infuriating. My sister had on Clue the other night. There, if you've watched that movie, there's a scene like flames, like just anyone who would do that, I wouldn't want around my child, period. So I wouldn't care if it was a relative. If you like are going to encourage my child to be rebellious and to keep things from me, like trust was always really important in my family's. My dad, the only reason why he would like really get us, as far as like discipline, was if we were deceptive, like trying to be super deceptive. So he always said, if there's a situation, it's a life or death situation, or it's an emergency or something, I need to know that I can look you in the eye and trust you. So trust was always very important. So the fact that you had, people who are supposed to care for these kids while you're not there, that they would create a wedge and this huge divide and impact their mental health, their well-being, is just disgusting. And there was one family where a girl actually tried to commit suicide, and her father didn't know she was struggling with gender identity until he caught her trying to hang herself. So he said that after he took her out of the school and got her some counseling and help, she doesn't have any sort of that gender confusion anymore, according to him. But that was a story that was going around. So I just want there to be some context that these are real life issues and not something that Governor DeSantis just dreamed up the reason for this bill. There's real families impacted by these crazy teachers, these who want, and administrators who want to hide this stuff and drive that divide. So there's actual real reason why they had this bill. So that's part of it. A big chunk of the bill, of the law that was passed, that Floridians found favorable, even people who are Democrats like this bill. So, and by the way, Ron DeSantis didn't write it. He didn't sign it. And when he even talked one time to the media, he's like, when I was looking at it, I'm like, there's all this dramas. So he looked at it, he's like, it's K through, like, you can't teach, this is the second part that's important. Like, you can't teach about sexual orientation or gender identity to grades K through 3. And you can't do it for older grades if it's in a way that's deemed inappropriate. Now, my opinion and other folks' opinions say that it doesn't go far enough. I'm like, why just K through 3? But they probably did that to be as least controversial as possible. I guess that failed. And he's like, it's K through 3. Like, which, when you actually explain the bill, and when you don't use all of the headlines in the the don't say gay that the media spread around, they know it's not that name. It's kind of like when politicians talk about trickle down economics, which, gosh, I didn't know this for like the longest time. But when they say trickle down economics, they're talking about supply side economics. So every time they're talking about when you look up supplies, when you look up trickle down economics, it doesn't work. You're probably going to find articles that say it doesn't work because that's a slur. It's not an actual, the correct term in economics. So if someone uses that, trickle down economics, they are someone who's a political hack. So not someone who's some kind of economist trying to make a point. So just wanted to throw that out there. But as people continue to throw out don't say gay, as if that's nowhere in there, by the way. There's nothing in there that says you cannot say gay. You cannot, like, you're going to be banned if you're gay, or like the word is, it says you can't teach sexual orientation, and it does not say same sex. It just says sexual orientation. So how would you feel if you're a parent and your kid is queer, and you got a teacher who's like, today we're going to learn about how you need to be heterosexual and that it's wrong to be the other thing. How would And how would you feel? You probably wouldn't like that. So, but you can't do that under this bill either. Or just you can't do it under the bill. It just says sexual orientation. It does not specify same sex. So many people don't know that. And then even people being told they want to play dumb. So, and we're not even through this video yet. We're spending so much time debunking this portion of Joy Reid and just how much of a moronic liar she is. And she must know there's no way at this point. It's been too long. There's been too many corrections. There's been polls of these folks. It's been passed. People should know. Now, maybe I assume a lot of her audience still doesn't know. And that's why she can get away with it. At least in her echo chamber. Her people in her echo chamber aren't going to find me correcting this for the millionth time, and other people correcting this. So yeah, I guess she feels like she can continuously lie to her audience about Ron DeSantis and what the parental rights and education bill does. But it is framing it as, people can't say gay or banning gay stuff out. I don't want like what's that queer this book is gay. I don't want that kind of stuff in the school, but that book is like pornographic. Like, so there's certain stuff that shouldn't be in there, which they're willing to, as we saw in Michigan, and some of these Democrats are willing to allow it and protect this pornographic material in schools just because it's gay. Like, even if it's like full frontal teaching kids about sex, or saying stuff like teaching kids how to get on apps, gay kids to get on apps, and this book's directed toward minors so they can talk to other gay folks. Like, they'll still be like, oh, you guys are attacking homosexuals, leave us alone. I'm like, or we're trying to protect kids, all kids, but it's just really absurd. But let's keep listening.
He's barring public high schools from teaching AP African American Studies. He's taking aim at drag performances.
Okay. I know I just talked about the AP thing the other day, but let me go into it again. The AP studies, and we'll get into this because of you ladies brought this up too. They did not just in Florida, you have to learn about African American history. That's part of the curriculum. As far as this AP class, and that's an advanced placement class. Usually when you're like in an AP class, you can get you're in high school, but it's so kind of strenuous or whatever that you can get college credits for it. They had critical race theory type stuff in it, intersectionality. They had queer theory in it. Let me see if I still have the slide up. I do not have the slide that I had the other day that just went through it. They had like Black Lives Matter type of stuff, reparations. So it was clearly like indoctrinated left wing sort of stuff. So and from my understanding, they took out that stuff, and I think they can go ahead and approve the course, but they're not supposed to have that stuff in it, and pretending like he's just trying to get rid of African American history is really ridiculous. It's really stupid. It's really dishonest. I guess it's not stupid for them saying it, because again, she knows her audience doesn't know better, and that she can continue to lie, and they'll continue to believe, and that they'll be mad at DeSantis. And if it comes down like DeSantis and I don't know, Newsom or something, people will be like, oh, we got to go with Newsom, even though he like California is a terrible place to live. So anything to stop this guy. And so many people don't like DeSantis because they do see him as a Trump who governs, and these are their words, not mine, more competently. They find him to be Trump but more effective. So they don't like DeSantis, and if he is a nominee, as much as they hate Trump, and I don't know if we'll ever quite get to the hysteria level that Trump had. I mean, it always seems like it gets kind of worse, but they'll say he's worse. They'll say DeSantis is worse than Trump. And there's already like articles why he's worse than Trump. And part of that is because they do view him as like an extension of Trump, but just can govern more effectively and is able to get other things done. Now, is he going to be able to wield the whole entire country like he does with Florida? that's to be seen. But there's a reason why they're relying on him to this degree, other than the fact that they're mad that he's getting rid of the woke stuff that they claim wasn't even in there in the first place.
Studies. He's taking aim at drag performances, even suggesting that he would urge the state's child protective services to investigate parents who take their own kids to one. He's actively trying to ban COVID.
Wait a second. Let's go back to the drag thing. So, we're talking. Why would you want your child to go to a drag show? Why would you want your child to go to a drag show? And you could say limited government. Like, first of all, these people don't believe in limited government. So there's that first and foremost. Joy Reid and these folks complaining, but there are certain places that you can't take your children and expose your children to certain things because they're not permitted to enter. And there were I think he made a statement or said something because there was was it the Rudolph thing? Well, it's not Rudolph, but it was like a Christmas special that was touring around the country, and they had in the performance they talked about family friendly drag, but they did mention that it was like a thing on the website it's not like kid friendly, but it did admit all ages. So there were parents who brought their children to those shows, and they're filthy, they're disgusting. I don't understand adults who go to those things. If you're out there and you watch those things yourself, I'm gonna be honest, if you told me, I would look at you sideways. I would, but particularly like kids going to those things, or people doing the drag at the libraries. I wrote an article about this at blacktnews.com. You guys can check out, but it's something I shouldn't even need to write an article about, but it's obviously immoral to have your kids around this stuff. People have the drag queens do the library stuff, even if they don't do anything provocative, particularly provocative at the libraries. They hire them because they are adult entertainers, not in spite of it. Oh, that's that thing they kind of do on the side. No, they hire them because they are adult performers that do a lot of risque, stuff that is not appropriate for children. Now, I'm not saying that, everyone who does stuff I write children's books, but I also write older books for adults, and some of them are kind of violent. Some of them are, one is particularly violent, but so I wouldn't give that to a small child to read. Not that, they'd be kind of challenging for younger readers anyway, but there are things that are age appropriate. So I'm not saying just because you do something that's maybe a little age appropriate for a set of group of kids that you can't ever be around them, but they're adult entertainers. Their profession is to do sexual things. So how would you feel if they invited strippers to read library stories? Right? How would you feel about that? And they specifically invited strippers, and maybe they're not having, and they're quite stripperish sort of outfit, most risque thing, but they show up kind of in uniform, and they sit down and they start reading to kids and start talking about how their profession empowers them, and maybe not get into too much detail, but they're there as adult entertainers representing themselves in that profession. How would you feel about that? So mixing these kids with the drag stuff, it's just not appropriate. So people coming at DeSantis and the drag and being like, oh, they're coming after the drag story time. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Even if you feel like people should have the freedom to do that, I don't even understand people who want to stand up and still advocate no, we're going to fight for those freedoms. You're a weirdo. You are a weirdo. So Joy Reid, you're a weirdo. Let's continue watching.
Who take their own kids to one. He's actively trying to ban COVID vaccine mandates and restricting mask rules, while at the same time calling for probes into supposed wrongdoing linked to the vaccine.
So, why would you be for, first of all, it was immoral. Once they knew that the vaccine would not prevent spread, having the mandates was immoral. It just was. Expect the way that they still bullied you, like socially, was immoral. The what they try to do with OSHA, how they use the passports, to basically break your spirit and your will until you complied, that was immoral. But once they found out that you can still catch it once you get the shot, it no longer became like you do this to help your neighbor, etc. It's just solely like you make a decision about what's best for you. I've done videos where people are like, oh, we did it to save you. I'm like, you're not welcome. I didn't ask you to, and you're not welcome. You did that for yourself. And now you're doing the virtue signal to feel better about yourself. But I didn't ask you to do it. I didn't ask you to do it. And at the end of the day, it's not really helping. Like, at least not preventing. So good for everyone who stood up against mandates. And good to anyone who's looking into any sort of wrongdoing, because we spend a lot of money from our government paying into the vaccines and other stuff. So if there's some kind of wrongdoing, don't the people deserve to know? Don't people deserve to know about any sort of harm that folks don't want to talk about? There are people who've been silenced, who've experienced negative effects in real time, who have been silenced. So yeah, I appreciate him saying that he's gonna look into the full breadth of the situation. I appreciate that. And I do think that there is a bit of politics with it, though, because Trump is not gonna, as the person who pushed Operation Warp Speed, he's not going to let go of the vaccine being a good thing, like the best thing ever, him being responsible, etc. So if there isn't more information that comes out about negative effects, then that is going to be something that hurts Trump and pushes DeSantis. Even though in Florida they have a high population of elderly people, they worked very quickly to vaccinate a lot of people. So there is that. So I don't know if he's going to totally be able to wash his hands of everything, but DeSantis, they did close down for a little bit, then they opened back up. He said, we were looking at the science, stuff didn't make sense, so we opened back up. So I feel like he kind of followed information as it was available, and not just what he was told. So I think in that sort of comparison, he's going to have the leg up on Trump as they go head to head, because that is apparently what's on the horizon, their sort of clash. But on a side note, people who are very pro-Trump are like, we don't know what DeSantis is going to do as far as foreign policy. I think that is the biggest sort of check in Trump's favor. So it's going to make for an interesting 2024 indeed. But let's finish watching the video.
And he's doing all of this while making sure that anyone can walk around with a gun, no permit required. It's a right-wing fantasy land, like Disney World, but in hell. Come to Florida, the meanest place on earth. So much so that even former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who supports...
Okay, that's the end of that. That's the end of that. So someone asked a question in the comments about how much social responsibility each person has. I don't kind of know what you mean, so if you could clarify, and I'll try to answer. I don't know if I'll answer in the live, but I'll try to answer if you can clarify. Thank you to everyone watching live in the chat, by the way. You'll be very much appreciated. So let's go ahead and watch these clips from the ladies at The View. A lot of the same stuff. I will try not to repeat myself too much with the complaining about Whoopi and Sunny.
I don't understand why he believes that he wants people to see the history of Western civilization and history and philosophy of Western civilization, because he wants it seen through that lens. Why is your lens better than my lens? What?
Because you're Whoopi freaking Goldberg. Because she literally says dumb stuff on The View every day and is paid to say like dumb stuff. This is Whoopi Goldberg, who got suspended not too long ago. Well, sometime obviously last year now. Because she made comments regarding Jews and the Holocaust and how people it wasn't really about race and is still there, which I said to folks who were angry and wanted her to get fired, it was very possible that she would have gotten fired. But I said she gets paid to say dumb stuff on The View all the time. So don't be surprised when she's still there to say dumb stuff on The View. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
So you're basically saying, like, to people like Marion Croak, you're not going to teach about her. Her history is American history. What is it that he doesn't get? We're not going anywhere. Just because you stop teaching it in the colleges, you think people are going to stop telling these stories? No, it's not going to happen.
So, again, they cover African American history. It's required in the actual teaching in Florida. They just don't want to teach queer theory and critical race theory and intersectionality and Black Lives Matter sort of propaganda and reparations movement and all that other kind of stuff in a class. Now, there's plenty of people who never go to college to learn and will learn this stuff, aren't going to be history majors, but there's only so much stuff that you learn in school, and there's only so much stuff people want to be taught because there's so many people go to school because they have to, and truancy laws and all the different stuff. But as adults, you can go out and learn whatever the heck you want. We have the internet. You can go on Amazon, buy tons of books, and listen to what you want to listen to, watch what you want to watch. You can do whatever and pick up any kind of information that you want. So just because you don't learn something in school at a place where you're forcibly made to learn things, and some people might resent having to be force-fed information anyway, you still have the full power as an adult to go out and do those things to learn. So, and there's a lot that which it is Black History Month, by the way, the first day of it. I grew up in half my school experience was in an urban city, my hometown, Pontiac. And then we moved out to Holly, which was a rural area. So, up until the middle of 7th grade, I was in Pontiac, and then I moved out to Holly. And so in Pontiac, Black History Month was like a big thing. We'd have like, there was these special booklets with different African-American heroes in it. We covered like the same stuff like over and over and over again. We'd have like special programs. There was this wild song we sang about Martin Luther King, and there was a line about him being shot in cold blood. I'm like, why did we sing this? It's just really graphic for kids, but we sang it, darn it. So it Black History Month was a big thing, and it wasn't so much in out in the rural areas, but again, like we really focused on stuff, at least in my experience, in elementary and other stuff like that. Is where, because that's where you have a lot of the big school programs and other stuff like that, I guess, in elementary. But we didn't really do that. So now, was it like really incorporated into like the history classes and stuff? I don't know. I'd assume so. I mean, people knew stuff, but there was stuff that I did not learn in either situation, in either district, until I was an adult and I began to seek out information. There was a lot of cool things that I learned when I was researching for my book that showed you guys earlier that you guys can go get on Amazon. That was that was really amazing to me. Reading history, looking up things, watching documentaries, reading books. So as an adult, you can learn. Your education can continue. But as we have all these arguments about what kids do and don't learn in school, just remember that there are still only a certain amount of hours in a day. And think if you were a kid back in school, would you appreciate all the stuff that they want to cram in your head? And then there's stuff that you don't learn. I was at an event on Tuesday night, and the speaker was talking about how kids just don't know basic stuff. He was at his daughter's wedding. One of her friends was talking about, he asked her question, and these are adults because his daughter's getting married. She didn't know how many weeks were in a year. And he's like, people don't know just basic stuff. And when he started explaining the story, complaining about people not knowing basic stuff, I thought he was going to say like basic life skills, like changing a tire or something, which I've had to help. I've never had to like do the whole thing by myself. Like I very much live in a day of AAA. But I'm like, Dad, what's the number? And like they call and somebody takes care of it. So or you drive to Bell Tire, wherever you can get. But no, just 52 weeks in a year that, you know, the people don't know stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff that people just don't know. And so when Republicans say we need to focus on the basics, math, you know, science, reading, there's kids who graduate from like Detroit schools who can, like public schools, who can't read, period. Like if you're there's so many folks who get job application resumes and they're written so poorly, like spelling is terrible, sentence structure is just awful. And I'm not talking about just being nitpicking stuff. I'm talking about people just really clearly barely skated by when they graduated high school, or maybe they didn't barely get by, they just allowed people to get by and they just had poor education. So when folks are saying we need to focus on the basics, people mean that. People really sincerely, truly mean that. So let's move on to Sunny. Gosh, I can't stand Sunny.
I don't understand, you know, first of all, I found it highly offensive that he compared African-American studies with zombie. Yeah. You know, learning about zombies.
What is that? Is that a code or something?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
code.
I think it is code. And the other thing is what he hasn't banned is AP European history, AP Chinese language and culture, AP French language and culture, German language and culture, Italian language and culture, Japanese language and culture, Spanish literature and culture and language. So it's just black people.
That.
So it's like, does he?
So is she comparing like a Spanish class and like a Japanese class to AP history, like a history course? Like, why are you comparing like other sort of course languages where you learn the language to this AP study? Say again, it had queer theory, a bunch of other stuff in it, but there's no, unless you're taking like a AAV class or something, you're teaching that. That's not really equivalent to all these things that she's listing off.
Just not.
Why are you so mad?
African Americans? Yeah, like what is there? You know, and then people, when they call him racist against African Americans, he's like, no, I'm not. But why put he's saying that this is an ideological argument. Well, he can't put his ideology in place of everyone else. What happened to Republicans, your party's limited government?
So, again, I've said this before. Like I took like, you know, advanced classes, and I took like honors classes. I was like on my way to taking like AP, like literature and different classes, and I guess I went to the advanced like AP like science and other classes. But one point in high school, I decided I was going to focus on art instead. And so I was just kind of like, so I don't need to stress about these AP classes if I'm going to go to an art school. My plan was to go in animation. That's why I ended up going to school for a little bit anyway. And so, but I can't imagine like going into an AP class, coming home and telling my dad that they were teaching queer theory in the class about African American history studies and stuff. So, and if you're questioning like why would they do that, and particularly in those kind of classes? Well, they do have to keep pairing. They don't have to, but it's strategic into why they keep pairing that kind of stuff with with Black related things. Even in the Respect Marriage Act, it was interracial marriage, and that's not just solely like Black, but they wanted to include interracial marriage with making same-sex marriage. Well, I guess it's protecting it. It doesn't actually make it legal for every state. It was kind of a useless sort of bill, except for repercussions it could possibly have for Christian organizations and stuff. But the reason why they paired that stuff is if you were like, no, I don't like this thing, they're like, well, then you're racist. So they're using one to shield the other. So they're having so they know, and many people have mentioned, and they mentioned it in other parts of kind of the show, so they know that there was other stuff in there that was woke that they did not like, but they're still going to be like, well, Ron DeSantis is a racist because he came after this AP course. Again, they teach African American studies, history studies, and Black history is American history already in the curriculum. So rejecting this particular course, this AP course, is what they could not accept. And Sonny's like, well, they say he's not a racist. He's not a racist. I know Sonny's a racist. Sonny has said plenty of racist stuff on The View. Plenty of racist stuff, but she probably doesn't think that she has the institutional power to be racist, as she repeatedly says this stuff on The View. So, no, Ron DeSantis isn't racist, which they played that card when he ran for governor against Gillum. Thank God. Man, they dodged a bullet. If you're from Florida, you dodged such a bullet. It's crazy. With Gillum being found in like a hotel with I don't know if he was an escort, but a guy, and there were drugs and other stuff. So they just really, really dodged a bullet there. But they were trying to call him a racist. So he had some kind of like remark that he made that wasn't really racist, but people were trying to attribute to racism. I can't remember it specifically. And then the way that he came after Gillum, they tried to make it seem like how he was coming after him over corruption, which he had things that were corrupt. They tried to make it seem like he was racist. So they'll continue playing that card. As people came for Trump for different stuff, they'll continue to come for DeSantis, and they'll if they can come at him harder, they'll come at him harder. But the reason why they pair a lot of the stuff is because they want to be able to say, hey, you come against this stuff, you're racist. And also it goes a bit deeper than that. Vadi Bachman did a series, Gay is the New Black, on YouTube. We kind of went into the history stuff. It is like he is like a preacher, so just FYI, there's a religious aspect from it. But what he quoted a lot, he had a lot of different references, but the kind of thinking was that the gay community doesn't have sort of natural allies, so they have to use other sort of people who were oppressed to make them their allies. So when people would come against gay homosexuality or gay marriage or anything like that, then they would relate it back to like Jim Crow, or they make it seem like anyone who had opposition, it would be like you were those folks at that time. So there's a wisdom behind it. If you're wondering why are they smashing all the stuff together, and they didn't pitch or maybe they did, I don't know, or I assume they wouldn't expect that they could get like a a queer studies over, on DeSantis and pitch that and expect that that was going to make the headlines when he rejected that. No, but saying, hey, he rejected an AP studies, that's what's getting the headlines and causing everyone to talk about it. So they're using it as a cover, regardless of however you feel about LGBT issues. They are using it as a cover. So, and there's other woke stuff in it too. It wouldn't have been accepted with all like BLM type stuff and intersectionality, and so it wasn't just like the queer theories stuff. But they should have known that was a no-go. And these ladies, they're just not great ladies. And Joy Reid knows better. All these people should know better. But that's all I got to say about that for now. The James Gunn situation with DC, I was going to play the video and walk through it, but maybe I'll have to do that separately because I am an hour. I'm at my hour mark, and I'm making food tonight for Bible study. So I got to go because it's going to take a while. I'm making my enchiladas, and they're very good. So I will say I'm not too impressed by what I saw. I'm still burned from the Henry Cavill situation. And he says that they want to do something or bring something different to the characters as far as the story, but making, particularly on the Superman thing, that because he is like using different stories from characters who are kind of more obscure. And I think he's going to try to, which he's taken like Guardians of the Galaxy and other folks and made them like household names. So he probably figures he can do that with these other sort of characters too. But as far as like their main sort of characters, which he didn't plan a Batman movie in his like announcement, which was curious. But they're still doing like the Robert Pattinson films, but they're like considered separately, so they don't fit into the universe that he's building. So he doesn't plan a Batman movie. So that's interesting. But as far as Superman, I've seen Young Superman. We've seen Origins. He says it's not Origin, but I've seen Young Superman, and I would like to see a mature Superman who's been around the block a bit and is juggling elephants for charity and doing like the good sort of wholesome Superman stuff with the optimism and the hope and the things that Henry Cavill promised that they were going to bring back and try to cover, which I haven't really seen them go much into with his tenure as Superman. And they're like, no, we want a young Superman. I'm like, why? I don't understand. So I will rant about this more later, and maybe I'll do it a separate video. I'm sorry I ran out of time and couldn't really dive into it. But thank you guys for watching. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different videos, different articles, and please check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. That's available for pre-order. You can get it you can get it on pre-order for the Kindle at on Nook, on ebook. You can, if you're waiting for the paperback, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer to pre-order it, but it is out there, so go ahead and check it out. I'm very excited for you guys to read that. And also, like I said, it's Black History Month. I have a bunch of books I've written, but if you want to know about a particular book, if you're in the mood for something fantastical with some good historical nuggets, it is not like the most historically accurate thing in the world, but there's definitely some interesting things. Like the second book, for example, covers the draft riots. That's like the big like battle kind of story, part of the movie book or whatever. So cool stuff, lots of cool stuff in there. So if you want to search me on Amazon, you can easily find it. Or if you go to blacktnews.com, hit the merchandise button. On the page at the top, there's a banner with my books on it, and you can go to my book website to see all my good stuff. So, and if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation to blacktnews.com. Thank you guys for watching.